Welcome to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen, hosted by attorneys Shawn Garner and Adam Hansen.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and Law. I'm attorney Adam Hansen. I've got Shawn Garner with me. We've got Tom Sparks, and I hope your weekend went well. Hopefully we can start off this Monday really, really good, hitting the ground running. Before we came on air, we were talking about this idea of hitting people, and Tom's in favor of that. Years ago, this was just maybe 5 years ago, I found this old box of my stuff. I found this letter that was sent home to my parents when I was in elementary school, basically letting them know that they will enforce corporal punishment. So if the students are out of hand, then they were going to exercise their right to spank them or to hit them, or do something like that. And I was like, oh man, that's crazy. I wish we had that, right? That's what you're arguing for, Tom. Corporal punishment.
Sure. And it's not that I think that I have the heart to do it, but I think that's my argument, is the reason we don't do it anymore is because we don't have the heart or the faculties to bring ourselves to do that any longer. And I think there's some certain downsides to that, and maybe there's upsides. I'm not sure, but...
Well, Shawn has a story. He's chomping at the bit to tell. He says it's spectacular, but I doubt it. Let's hear it.
No, I had a good discussion with a friend of mine. This is a kid that I knew since he was 12 years old, and I was his young men's leader, so we went on scouting adventures together. We went on a 50-mile canoeing trip together, and he had the gift of gab, so he could really talk. But anyway, he's now 21 years old, and he returned from an LDS mission and has grown quite a bit, has matured a lot, and he served his mission in Oakland, California. And we were talking politics and the welfare system and what could be done, because he saw so many individuals who have been stuck in the cycle, families and generations that have been stuck in the cycle of living off of welfare from generation to generation, that he couldn't understand how they could possibly break that cycle. The children don't have the mindset or the skills to make it in society. And I said, well, if I was the king of the world, I think we would have to eliminate it eventually, but we could do it in increments. We could do it maybe 5% at a time, 5% reduction of benefits per year. Let individuals know that's what was going to happen. Of course, you'd have to have an administration that was consistent and long-term enough in order for that to work. And I think that the biggest hindrance to society is that they don't learn to work. People don't learn to work and provide for themselves. And it's not exactly what Thomas is talking about hitting them and corporal punishment, but it is about consequences. It's about people taking accountability for their own actions and their own lives instead of this victim mentality or entitlement that I'm owed this by the government. The government is my de facto parents, and they should supply me with food and housing and medical care and everything else. And so I talked about what really we are entitled to as Americans, and that is just protection from the infringement upon our God-given rights, and that is life, liberty, and property. Property being we have to maintain the ability to keep our intellectual property, things that we contrive and concepts that we invent on our own, and intellectual property. Also, the production of that we make from property that we own. That is hence the definition of capitalism is production from owning something, capital. And all of that is necessary for the government to do to protect us from others infringing upon those rights, but we have no entitlement for the government to give us anything. And in fact, when we do feel that way, or when the government does provide those entitlements, those systems of welfare, and the bigger the safety net there is, the weaker the mind is, the weaker the body becomes, and we don't fend for ourselves. And I don't know what individuals would do to start providing for themselves, but humans are very, very intuitive. They're very creative. They can figure it out. And so I have a lot of faith in humankind in general and Americans specifically because of the mass wealth that we have here and the infrastructure that's provided and the amazing land that's provided, that we could do much better if the government would pull back and get out of our way. So that was my approach to him. Now, Thomas is, when somebody does an offense, the consequence should be swift and severe. So what
Is that accurate? Is he painting you accurately? Just because you're a Marine?
Just because I'm a Marine. No, I think that's part of it. And this is a conversation that I had with a fellow Marine for a long time when I was stationed here at the Air Base on active duty. And we were he was a fellow lawyer. So while we're not working any cases or anything, what do? We just argue. And that's just what lawyers do in their spare time. So that's what we were doing.
That's what we call fun.
It's what we call fun. So we were having some fun, and we were trying to figure out, is corporal punishment, does it work? Why did it stop? Because we don't really do it very much anymore. Like, I'm talking about medieval times. You did a crime, you get, your hand cut off. You are put on the rack. You're drawn and quartered. All these, very gruesome things. You're put in the brazen bull, and we don't do any of that anymore.
Brazen bull, I don't know what that one is.
The brazen bull, it's a brass statue of a bull that's hollow, and you put someone inside it, and then you just heat it up with a fire until they burn.
Whoa.
That's what it is.
Well, we have a Connex box out there.
It's kind of like our brazen bull.
And it's pretty hot. So
The hot box.
yeah.
Go to the hot box.
Yeah, so
10 minutes in the hot box.
So all of that, but even that, 10 minutes in a hot box, that's an extension of this idea that physical suffering will teach you exactly what you ought to do and what you ought not to do. We don't really like that idea anymore. We have moved over to what I think is more of a mental suffering, where we just put you in prison for a long, long time, where the mind is afflicted, but not necessarily the body. And I can't really draw a principle as to why that's okay versus the physical.
What do you mean by that, though? I want you to go deeper into that.
There's an argument. Let me see if I understand what you mean. That mental punishment is a cruel sense or version of punishment than even corporal punishment, because that is the really definition of whether you're happy or sad is your mental state. And so if you penalize and are cruel to the mind, then that's the ultimate punishment. So that's what we're doing when we're putting people in jail, is we're just saying we're going to lock up your body and your mind is going to stay stagnant and think about all the things that you've done for years on end. I think that's much more draconian than even chopping a hand off, perhaps.
I mean, it could be, and I'm not making an argument of which one's worse. I'm simply pointing out that our philosophy has changed, and I'm not so sure that it's any more kind. It's just a different way to punish. So the question that my friend would ask me is, okay, like, what if you had someone who was a repeated, I don't know, we'll say he's a thief, and he has the option. He's stolen some really expensive things, and he can either go to jail for 10 years or he can choose to lose his thumb. Like, are we okay as a society letting him make that choice? So if he loses his thumb, he doesn't go to jail because that's his punishment. And it's in the eyes of the society, if we voted for that law, the society would be okay with that alternative. And
what do you think about that, Adam?
Yeah.
First blush.
I think you made comment of people being locked up for indefinite periods of time. Does that really solve the issue? I think it's not so much about, well, it's partly about the time that they have to sit there, and their freedoms are restricted or removed to a certain extent, dependent on, what we've as a society have decided to be appropriate for that particular crime or that offense that they committed. And that's number one. But you go back to what Tom mentioned before. He said, put him in the stocks, or you put him in this brazen bull. That was a public way to show even Jesus Christ on Calvary, right?
Yeah.
On Golgotha. So that was on the entrance of Jerusalem with the thieves next to him. That was a common practice of the Romans. When you enter Rome, they wanted you to see, we take our laws seriously. If you offend our laws, this may happen to you. So I think nowadays, do we do that? We do partly that, in the sense of you're going to go to prison for an amount of time that we've agreed upon as a society is appropriate to that crime, number one. Number two, it's supposed to act as a public deterrent to other individuals, hopefully not committing these crimes, because this person's been locked up for 15, 20 years, and that's the weight of that crime. I don't know if that's a public deterrent or not. I don't know if it works, because most of us are probably walking around ignorant to a lot of criminal laws, and we're probably breaking them, not even knowing it most of the time. These laws are put in place, by legislatures, and we're not. It's my opinion, and maybe other people are. I'm not looking through the legislative actions of the Arizona Congress every day to see, oh man, did you see this? You can't. I can't. I might be criminally liable for kicking somebody out of our office because they wanted to use the men's restroom instead of the women's restroom, and they're a woman. I don't know. I'm just making this up. But we don't keep a beat, is my opinion, on the day-to-day of the legislature. And I would argue that we probably are breaking crime. We are committing crimes, and we don't even know it. And it just is kind of unfortunate. Sometimes people get caught, if you will. Unbeknownst to them, they're ignorant. I think most of us know the big ones. You can't kill people. You can't steal, that kind of stuff. But there are other crimes that are being put in place, that are in place and have been in place for many years or decades, that we're oblivious to. And we might even be breaking those. The question is, okay, does the going political, does law enforcement have a duty to enforce those crimes, or do they get to pick and choose as the executive branch or the executive in Arizona? I'm just talking Arizona specific. Do they get to pick and choose what they enforce and what they don't enforce? And should they be able to do that? If we as a people elect our legislature, and then they're supposed to be representing us, and they create these laws, we put them into place, we put them there, they create these laws, and now we're bound by those laws. Do you have an executive branch then with the authority to use their discretion as to what they're going to prosecute and what they don't? I don't know. I would argue no. I mean, it should be, if we're talking about equal justice, that's what we often hear, especially back with the Trump trials and these, it looked like political war lawfare. That's what it looked like. And it would look like selective prosecution. And the clamoring from the public was, we need justice, we need an equal justice system. Well, it's not equal justice if you're treating Tom different than you're treating Adam on the same particular crime, and that's what I'm seeing around the nation, is you're seeing these prosecutors that pick and choose the cases they want to prosecute depending on their political affiliation. Mm-hmm. I just heard last week, I heard a newscast about George Soros dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into prosecutor elections across the nation with the intent to, and then they've created this whole training system too. So they get these people elected that they pick and choose in these different forums around the nation as prosecutors, and then they train them the way that they should be prosecuting the crimes that they need to let go and not prosecute. I don't understand the motivation there. I don't know. Maybe I need to look into it a little bit more, but I don't understand that idea of basically allowing criminals to run amok. What would be the motivation to dump my fortune into that political type of action? I just don't get it. Why there? Why are you spending your money there?
Well,
I haven't thought it through though.
Here's, I think, one of the speaking points, and that is that the criminal justice system is fundamentally racist. And so racial minorities are being punished at a higher level than whites. And so if we can diminish the punishment altogether and reduce the enforcement of the criminal justice system, then we are going to offset the racial injustices that occur. And that is really a speaking point to the Democratic Party. And George Soros, of course, is one of the largest donors to the Democratic Party, and he pushes that quite frequently, and his ideas and concepts become their policies, and that is one of them. That it's been a racial inequity, and therefore we're going to attack the entire system and bring it down.
Oh, I can understand that from that point of view. We got to go to break. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
Coming up, more thought-provoking conversations on life, death, and the law right after this.
Hey, Yuma, Dave Ramsey here. If you listen to our show or know anything about us, then you know I only recommend products and services I trust and I believe in. That's why when it comes to protecting your assets and planning for your loved one's future, you've got to call my friends Shawn Garner and Adam Hansen at the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen. I encourage you to take the first step and attend a free, no-pressure seminar and learn all of your options. The firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen has been educating the Yuma community for over 40 years, and this is the only area of law that they practice. Shawn and Adam believe in giving free education to help people make smart decisions about their assets and help them leave a legacy for their family that they can be proud of. Schedule a free personal consultation today. Call 783-4575 or visit yumaestateplanning.com.
You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and the Law. We are estate planning attorneys. We help people get their affairs in order by first acknowledging and identifying what their assets are, and then determining how they can pass them down to their beneficiaries, whether it's their children or favorite charities, without government intervention, and also with the least amount of taxes that we can legally do. But we like to talk about more exciting things on this show, and right now we're going to be talking about oppression, because Adam started out the show last segment about a note getting sent home asking permission from his parents for the teachers to spank him as he acted out. And I'm sure his dad signed that willingly. So our society today, of course, doesn't accept that. Teachers touching a child would be, they get thrown in jail. And corporal punishment is one of those things that parents, if you were to say it out loud that you spank your children in a crowd, I think that there might be like mob reaction to that statement. And it's interesting. We've become very soft in society. Thomas talked about how previously, for generation or for many millennia prior to the current day and age, there was very swift, strict punishments for breaking the law, like chopping off your hand if you stole something, or being cooked alive in a brazen bull for, I don't know what that crime would have been, but hopefully it was something serious.
I hope so too.
You don't know what it was, the brazen bull crime?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
Sure, it's a litany of crimes.
all right.
Jaywalking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously hanging for treason.
Crucifying.
The thing about, and so there were a lot of things that the death penalty was implemented, and it was quick. There was a quick trial, and then as soon as the verdict was passed, the execution occurred very swiftly. Today, we've gone so far to the other side that anything that we interpret as too severe of a punishment, we're crying from the rooftops about it. And Bill Maher talks about oppression, and this is a related, not an exact complement to this topic, but it's a related topic, and it helps us put in perspective whether or not we in America, especially our kids in school or college, are being oppressed. So I want to play this clip for you.
All about here. I'm sorry your professor said something you didn't like. That won't be a problem with the Taliban because you're not allowed to go to school. In Saudi Arabia, grown women can be jailed for doing the kind of things we think of as routine without the permission of a male guardian. China rounds you up if you're the wrong religion and puts you in camps. More children in Burkina Faso work than are in school. Only 5% of Burundians have electricity. The homicide rate in Honduras is 8 times what it is here. The inflation rate in Venezuela is 2,719%. The Philippines, in the last 5 years, has put to death 27,000 low-level drug dealers. In North Korea, people starve to death. The only people who starve here are doing it for a role.
He's got
And
a
the only
picture of
people who
Matthew
have no
McConaughey
water
there.
live in California. If you think America is irredeemable, turn on the news or get a passport and a ticket on one of those sketchy airlines that puts its web address on the plane.
He makes a great point. We've got so many people out there that feel like they've been insulted for microaggressions, even if the person that was hold on a second. We feel like people, they are insulted by microaggressions. Sometimes they're insulted and the offender didn't even know they insulted them. But that doesn't matter. It only matters that they felt the insult. Or sometimes the offender may have unintentionally constructed a sentence or announced a pronoun improperly and created an irredeemable offense. And this has created an incredibly soft society. I would even say a soft-minded society. And we know the old saying that soft times create soft men, and soft men create very hard times, and hard times create good men, and good men create easy times. And then the cycle repeats and over. So what we need to do is, before we get too soft that we just go down the drain as far as a civilization, is think about what we can do to redeem society. One of the things that I was talking about, again, to my friend who returned from his mission, was the best thing that he could do is work hard, continue to work hard, get married, have children, and teach them to work hard. There was nothing that he could do, no level of success that he could have in his career that would be enough to counter the ill effects of having children that lived off of his wealth and his success without acquiring their own skills and developing their own abilities to be productive members in society. We often think that if we give back enough to people that are less able to provide for themselves, the victims of society, whether they are people that have lower aptitude in academics, or that have been historically marginalized, that if we provide for them, if we give them reparations, then we can lift them out of the poverty that they've suffered from at the hands of their oppressors. And I think it's the complete opposite. I think that the mindset of the victim is the most cruel punishment, because they're never going to allow themselves accountability and then take charge of their own lives and acquire the skills that they need, regardless of whether or not the past was just, to be productive and have a satisfying life and acquire the things that they want for their own families, and then pass that on generations to come.
Yeah, this reminds me of a phrase that was often used when I was going through officer candidate school for the Marine Corps. It was when, first of all, the principle that's instilled in you is you cannot be the weak link. There are people on your left and your right, and there's people that you're leading that rely on you. So you can't cower, and you can't shirk your responsibility. And then two is, anytime we were trying to do something difficult and we would mess up, we would be punished. And the common phrase was, when the mind fails to comprehend, the body must suffer. I heard that so many times. And that's exactly what happens, is you get incentive trained. Like if you're in boot camp and you do rigorous physical training as a result in officer candidate school, and that's just what happens. But you learn really quick. The body learns really quick to avoid that kind of suffering. And I think in a society, I'm not saying that we need to go look for suffering, but suffering, and this is even, if you want to look for it in the New Testament or the scriptures, I think there's a lot of philosophy there and theory there that backs this up, that suffering is what begets progress in some way. And that's what I feel like is missing, is we have such a cushioned life, and we're so used to getting what we want and having everything, pushed aside for us to have an easy route. The suffering piece is missing, and therefore the growth piece is missing, and that's why you have this failing of society.
I wonder if our youth today aren't jaded in the sense of we send them off. We've decided as a society, 18, you're an adult. Okay, that's just an arbitrary number we came up with. Why 18, not 17 or 16 or 15 or 21? I don't know, but 18, that's the number. Okay, now you're a legal adult. Upon that day happening for our kids, you can no longer make their medical decisions for them. You're not their parent in the eyes of the law. They are their own person, and they would have to execute a power of attorney naming you as their agent in order for you to actually have authority in their life the day they turn 18. So I think leading up to that, we do our youth, at least here in our culture, in the United States culture, I think we do them a disservice getting them prepared for that day when they leave the nest. That's the hope. They leave the nest, like Shawn is saying, and they become something taking your name on into the world and hopefully making your name look good, right? For generations to come. That's the goal. And to make our society better, whatever that looks like. And I think we do them an injustice when we portray life. I would even go as far as saying it's a fake portrayal of real life through social media. So they're living their lives on their phones, on digital media, through Facebook, through Instagram, through WhatsApp, whatever you want. These social media ways of connecting with our world, I think are a false sense of foundation. And when they turn 18, they realize, oh, wait, I can't just jet set around the world like this Instagrammer does. I can't go to Greece because I have no money. I don't even know how to execute a lease agreement at an apartment complex. I don't know how to go to the bank or open a bank account. I really feel like we need to do a better job preparing our youth for that day of 18, because I didn't know what to do. I mean, when I luckily I was thrown out into it. Shawn mentioned this friend of ours that just got home from his church mission. I went on a church mission. Actually, all three of us did. And I was just a kid. I mean, I was 18, 19, and I went to a foreign country where I didn't speak the language, and there was no help other than relying on God to get you through that, and that's part of the process, I guess. But at the same time, it was a process that caused me to not just sit there and think, oh, woe is me, and I'm just, I'm never going to figure this out. I had to figure out how to communicate in a foreign language and get from here to there and get tasks done. And I didn't have my parents to tell me, Adam, this is what you do. Don't do this, don't do that. And I just had to figure it out. And of course, I was asking questions of other people, of the locals, of people that I was working with. But you just got to figure it out. And I think our youth need to get more training prior to going out into the world, especially in our society, where we are fortunate in the sense that us three, at least here at this table, we got that world training, not because we necessarily asked for it, but you had to adapt really quickly. You were thrown into an environment where it's like, okay, it's either sink or swim.
Well, we live in a culture, in our church, it is highly, highly recommended that you attend a 2-year mission when you turn 18 years old. And that means you submit your name to the church authorities, and an apostle makes a decision where in the world you will go. You have no discretion as to where that's going to be, and it could be Russia. Although I don't know if missionaries are they still being sent to Russia
now. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they are.
But it could, as of a few years ago, it could be Russia. It could be South America. It could be. I went to Brazil. Adam went to Spain. Thomas, you went to Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a different world.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had it the worst of us all. Anyway, we went to these things willingly, and the biggest threat that was out there as missionaries was, if you don't toe the line, if you don't work hard, it wasn't that you had to learn the language in a certain amount of time or you had to achieve some level of success within the church. It was if you don't follow the rules, if you don't get up on time, if you don't take care of yourself and follow the rules and try and work hard, you will be sent home. And do you remember how you felt when faced with that potential of being sent home or even going home and not finishing your mission honorably? Do you remember how you felt about that, or did that ever cross your mind?
It never crossed my mind, but...
It certainly crossed mine. What about you, Thomas? Did it ever cross your mind about going home early?
Yeah, I was never in fear of going home early, but the thought of if it happened was it was unacceptable to me.
Yeah.
That idea of going home early and facing that, what would be shame, really.
The social
Shunned.
fallout.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The whisperings behind the...
Mm-hmm.
For me, there was a big fear about it because I grew up in this subculture, which is the LDS subculture, and that is when people go on their mission, they come home better men, better able to go to college and tackle whatever it is in front of them, whether it's a vocational career or whether it's academia. And I saw that in many of my friends before me going and leaving as, some just harebrained kid and then coming home as a pretty responsible adult that was able generally to speak a different language, but moreover to love God, to have a general love for the people around him, and to work his butt off for whatever it was that he wanted to achieve. And I got to Brazil and thought, well, that's going to happen. It's just going to happen to me. God is going to endow me with this spirit, and I'm going to be able to speak the language, and I'm going to be a hard worker, and this laziness that is my general characteristic is just going to be rooted out of me, and I'm going to come back with a new heart, ready to work and ready to learn. And of course, that's not how it goes. That's not how life works. And so it was super difficult. I had diarrhea for the first year, and I lost 40 pounds. And so I was suffering, and I couldn't speak the language, and kids 3 and 4 years old were running around me in the streets, barely dressed, but making fun of me because I couldn't speak as well as they could. And that's a really humbling experience. And so I really buckled down and started getting up at 5 a.m. instead of the required 6:30 a.m. and studying the language and really applying myself. And of course, it was a big come to Jesus for me, literally, because I had to have God's help in doing it. I realized at a certain point I couldn't do it myself. I needed God's strength. I needed God's grace to make me something more than what I was. And then when I saw that starting to build, it became something that was addictive. I wanted more of it. I felt that I was learning, I was growing, my mind was expanding, my body was becoming more adapted to the circumstances. And so the hardships weren't something that I feared or tried to avoid. They were things that I confronted head on. And so when I got home, I couldn't stand any type of inactivity. I had to be doing something productive all the time. And when I graduated high school, I didn't want to go to school at all. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to go to school or work hard for some type of advanced career. And when I got home from my mission, I was like, yeah, bring it on. I'll go to school. I know how to learn. I know how to buckle down and figure things out. And it doesn't always have to be going to school, but it is about knowing you have the potential as long as you put your mind to it and are willing to go through what it costs to achieve your goals.
I hear all this we got to go to break, but before we go to break, I hear in our discussion what keeps coming to mind when you're talking, Shawn, is that individual has to make a choice, and that choice is either I'm going to buckle down and get this going, I'm going to work, or what's the alternative? You blame everybody around you, And so for those that are listening, are like, I want to be more like Shawn. I want to, grab the bull by the horns. We're gonna talk about that as we come back. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
Coming up, more thought-provoking conversations on life, death, and the law right after this. You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and the Law. We were talking earlier in the first two segments about how life gets hard, and Tom's reaction is, well, just suck it up or you will get hit. That's what we teach you in the Marine Corps. The mind is strong, the body is weak. Is that what I hear?
That's the ideal.
That's the ideal.
The
Okay.
mind is strong, and it can make the body strong.
Well, and one point that I want to make real quick is that all of us that went through these life-changing experiences where we became,
Better?
Better people, developed the skills that we have, it was a situation that we were catapulted into because of the society that we lived in. It's a subculture in the LDS subculture, but the society that we adopted, and that is, you need to go out there and be a man. This is your walkabout, if you will, for Aborigines in Australia?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. And everybody needs to go through it. Now, every culture is going to have a different version of it, but it takes away the parent and says, okay, now you're going to go, you're old enough to do this, it's going to be super hard, you're going to figure it out, we're not going to walk you through it step by step, you are going to have intuition that you're going to have to rely on and your survival skills, but at some point it's do or die. We've got queued up here a clip from Jocko, what's his last name?
Willink.
This is Tom. Tom, what you're going to preface it, or are we going to listen to it?
Sure. So
Let's listen to it live.
Yeah, let's do it live. Yeah.
Here we go.
All right.
Something is wrong and going bad, you always just look at me and say, good. And I said, well, yeah. When things are going bad, there's going to be some good that's going to come from it. If you can say the word good, guess what? It means you're still alive. It means you're still breathing. And if you're still breathing, well, then hell, you still got some fight left in you. So get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, and go out on the attack. When some
Okay. Oh, well, wow. I don't know what's going on. So, I don't know. I'm kind of speechless here, Tom. Maybe this speaks to you. Why does this speak to you?
Well,
This is your motivation. So you put on headphones and you listen to Jocko Rubio. What's this guy's name?
Jocko.
Jack-o'-lantern?
Willink.
I can't see the video, so I don't know.
Jocko Willink. So he's a.
He's all ripped. Is he probably ripped? I see this guy's ripped.
He's a huge man. Yeah.
Ripped, just like.
He's got to be a Marine.
I'm gonna pull
He's
your
a
head
Navy
off.
SEAL.
Yeah, he's. I got home and I paid my dues, and I'm gonna rip your head off. And
No, he's actually a pretty soft-spoken guy. But he's a.
That's what he came across as.
A former Navy SEAL officer. So he was in charge of a lot of Navy SEALs under his command. Anyway, that's a shortened clip of the full clip, which basically is saying that whenever something goes wrong, you have a way that you can look at it. You can either quit and you can say, yeah, that just beat me, or you can say good. Like, it failed the test, good. Or, work wasn't that great today, good, because that's an experience that you can take. And you can take that, to draw from the past segment, you can take that suffering and you can learn from it and you can use it to propel yourself forward. And that's the idea is, Shawn, when you're talking about going on a mission and coming home and seeing this changed person, when I saw missionaries come home, I thought the same thing. Like, I'll just live my life the way I want. I'll go serve my mission, and then all of a sudden, some magic is going to happen, and I'm going to be different. But I didn't see the journey that those missionaries went on over those 2 years. And it's only something that I recognized once I went through it. And once I experienced it, I understood how it happened.
Okay, so Jocko Willink, that seems to get you, motivated.
Yeah, a little bit.
It doesn't really speak to me, but that's okay. Maybe I got to see the guy in the video. I just heard the audio, sounded intense, and maybe it's my mood right now. But I can tell you, any mood that I'm in, or any where I am, I just keep talking and hope that my sentence goes in the direction that I need it to go. No, there's Michael Scott there. No, but I have a go-to. Okay, this is play the clip. Okay, so this, when I am down in the dumps, okay, it's no Jocko, but this, my friends, this is a religion in my household. We call it Rocky Balboa, and this is the voice that I hear when I'm down in the dumps.
Get up! Don't lay it down! Fight this guy hard! Come on! Come on! He's no machine. I didn't hear no bell! Get up, you son of a bitch! Mickey loves you.
See, I mean, you can't help but just like,
Yeah, it's classic.
yeah, everything just goes away,
Yeah.
right, when you hear that? So it's no Jacko, but that's, in my mind, I actually hear that sometimes. I will. Like, if something's going hard, I think of Mickey
Yeah.
and get up, you know? And that's what motivates me. Any other motivational things you have? Because this is my question. So we've talked about, Shawn, you were talking about last segment, you were talking about this adventure you went on your mission and how you have to really dig deep. My question is, what if you don't, you know? And if we have listeners that are like, I'm at this point now, or I'm feeling these things now where it's really hard, and what's the alternative of not pushing through that? Is giving up. But what does that look like? You know? What do you think, Tom? What is it either one or the other? Is it I'm going to push through this hard, difficult time in my life? I'm going to find some motivation through either God or some other means to pull me through this, or the alternative, I guess, is you don't. You just take it, and then what happens? I guess, or is it that clear? Is it this way or that way, or is it a combo where I kind of get up, you know, but I'm not really into it, and I struggle through? What do you think?
Yeah, I from my anecdotal experience in my own life,
Which is pretty much a psychologist, right?
yeah. So in my professional opinion,
Oh,
this
jeez.
is what I'm saying.
We're not giving legal advice, by the way, over the air.
Or psychological advice,
Well, okay.
maybe some life advice,
We're not licensed there, so we're not really liable.
right?
No, do not listen to that. That was a bad example.
So let her rip.
Let her rip.
So I think that there's always a middle ground. You know, you're not. Very few times in life are you going to win to the highest level that you could possibly win. And on the other side, I don't know if many people are losing as hard as they could lose. Like if you're born in America, like you're already winning. Okay. So there's number one.
And that's not egotistical, by the way.
So number two is there are going to be times in your life where you don't perform as well as you want. Doesn't mean that you have to take that as I'm terrible and I'll never amount to anything. There are small victories, I think, that you look for in life, and you use those as stepping stones. But that's the beauty of being on the journey. And there's a time in my life, like when I was on base a lot, and in the Marine Corps you have to work out to stay in shape so you can pass your physical tests, so you can be.
How often is that physical test?
So you have
Every 3 months?
You have two major tests, so every 6 months.
Okay.
And but the idea is you don't go out of fitness at all, because if you're called up, you're ready to go.
You got to be go. Yeah.
Yeah, you're ready to go at a moment's notice. So I had a buddy, the same one we were actually talking about punishment theory. It's my fellow lawyer. He really liked working out. I didn't like working out. I don't. I do it because I know it's necessary, but I don't like to do it. And he said something to me during a workout that will stick with me forever. And he said, I'm not trying to get through it. I'm trying to go through it. And that phrase has changed my mentality about, going through hard things. I'm not getting through it to get to the prize. I'm going through it to understand the challenge and see what the challenge is going to teach me. And then I think that lesson that is learned can be the prize in itself. So no matter what the outcome is, your value gained was from the lesson learned.
That is so hard, though, in the moment, I would argue. You're in this thing. I can only see this. You've got that myopic view where you just tunnel vision. This is my life, and it's super hard right now. Mm-hmm. And there, woe is me kind of thing. So it's very hard to step back. It's what I hear you say is the advice that you're giving me, you're my Dr. Sparks.
Mm-hmm. Of the law.
Of the law. You're giving me advice to, hey, Adam, when you're going through this hard thing, step back look at the bigger picture and look for the little wins through this hard thing. That's what I hear you to say?
Yeah, and I agree that it is hard, and I don't do it very well in the moment, but that's the retrospection, if that's a word, can be a teaching moment to us when we're finally through it and there's been some time separation. You can think back at something that you previously thought was a terrible thing that happened in your life. And once it's maybe a little bit more distant, you go back and you reevaluate and see, what actually did I learn from that experience?
I think the word that comes to me is prayer. So I am a religious person. I go to church on Sunday. Every Sunday I try to attend church. I throughout the week I'm doing things with the church, and daily we as a family, this is just our tradition. I don't know how you are, Shawn and Tom, but in our family we pray at least 3 times a day as a family with the kids. Before we leave the house, we do prayer. Before every meal we pray. So we're praying probably, let's say, 6 times a day through the course of a day. But personally, what I find is that's a good opportunity for me to say my own prayer, and that gives me what I just classified as the stepping back, the zooming out effect, because now I'm talking to God and I'm saying, listen, this is what this is hard for me. I don't know what to do. And then I listen, and I hopefully get answers, and hopefully it comes. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't in that particular moment. But to me, I think that's a good exercise. Whether it's a prayer to a greater being or it's meditation, really I think that they're one and the same. You're stopping, you're actively taking time to think, ponder, and just listen and be still. I guess is what it is, going back to the ancient art of karate.
Right.
Be still. Not like I know anything about karate. But I have seen Karate Kid Season 6, which I'm excited for the new episodes to come out in November. But I digress.
Yeah, I've never seen the TV show, just the original movies.
Yeah.
But love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's corny, but it's fun. It takes you back. But I think, what do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me on the prayer thing?
No, I do not disagree.
Okay.
Meaning I totally agree.
Well, good for you.
That is very important to do. The more often, the better, I would say, because it's going to continually. The more often you can do that, the less likely you are to get into a hole where you're just so focused on everything that's going wrong. The more often you can get outside of that mindset, the safer you're going to be.
We only have a couple minutes left, Tom. And what would you say to our listeners? Okay, so they're going through something hard. Give us some advice. The final words of Tom, the wisdom of Tom.
My advice is good. I'm happy you're going through something hard, because in those moments, that's where you're going to find the gems that you need in life to persevere through harder things. I think we're kidding ourselves if we think what I'm going through now is the hardest thing I'm ever going to do. There's going to be something down the road that equals it or is greater, and you're going to need these experiences. And I'm a religious man as well, and I believe that God gives you the experiences that you have in order to prepare you for ultimately what he has for you in the future. And it's a stepping stone process, suffering a little bit here and there to temper yourself, like we temper metal to make it stronger. That's all that's happening. It's a strengthening process so you can handle what's coming in the future.
We got to go. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
If you have questions or want to know more about something that was discussed today, please call the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen at 928-783-4575 or visit yumaestateplanning.com.